Thank you so much for the introduction and the chance to be here. I've seen how your life can change in an instant, and I've lived to tell the story. In early March 2015, I was living in my apartment downtown with my 2 cats. I worked as a construction manager, part-time as an office administrator. I'd started a catering business, and I played ringette weekly. Safe to say I was active. I had hardly ever been sick in my life, and having lived in Ottawa most of my adult life and most of my childhood, I never knew where the Civic Campus was. On Friday, March 13th, I was driving to a bachelorette party in Mont Tremblant. The bride-to-be was in the front seat, and I had a friend in the back seat. We were so excited. It was my first weekend off in 3 years. About an hour from our destination, on Highway 323, a car crossed over the center line and hit me head-on. That was my instant. The noise from the impact is all I remember, crushing metal, shattering glass. In a miraculous turn of faith, the first person on the scene was a resident from the Ottawa Hospital. She concluded very quickly that my injuries were very severe, and she waited with me until there was help. It took about an hour to get me out of the car. I was initially taken to the Hull Hospital, but because of the severity of my injuries, I was transferred to the Ottawa Civic Campus, home of our region's only trauma center. This is where I would remain for 9 months. While my friends had relatively minor injuries, I had a grocery list of broken bones, my right big toe to my ribs, and just about everything in between. Most notable was an opened compound femur fracture, an open left elbow fracture, right humerus fracture, crushed and broken left and right foot ankle fractures, an open book pelvis fracture, dislocated sacroiliac joints, and multiple broken lumbar vertebrae. I remained sedated in the ICU for 2 months. My injuries were very significant and resulted in many complications. I developed sepsis from a bowel perforation and required a complete bowel reconstruction. I recovered from my infection along with 100 hours of orthopedic and reconstructive and internal surgery, and over 100 blood transfusions, and many, many close calls. My body was weak, but I pulled through. However, my struggle was not over. 4 months after the crash, I began physiotherapy in my hospital bed, and I could finally eat solid food. I had lost all of my hair and had severe nerve damage, chronic illness myopathy, and chronic illness neuropathy. I couldn't feed myself, brush my own teeth, or move much at all. The first couple of weeks seemed like torture. The nurses would set little goals for me, like sitting up in my wheelchair for 20 minutes a day. The physiotherapist and occupational therapist didn't know if I'd ever walk again. I was scared to think of the life that was waiting for me outside of the hospital. My first real sign of recovery came a few weeks later when I was able to feed myself with my right arm. By August, I was looking for a new home to meet my needs. After exploring a few options, it was decided that I would leave the Civic Campus and move to the Rehabilitation Center at the General Campus, where I began intensive physiotherapy, occupational therapy, and a psychological therapy program. I left just before Christmas, and although I had not made many functional gains, I felt much stronger and healthier. I continued as an outpatient, and I had my last surgery in February 2016, which allowed me to transfer from my bed to my wheelchair independently. In May 2016, I stood independently for the first time. After many more weeks of painful standing and walking in the hospital's therapy pool, I started to walk with the aid of a harness within the parallel bars. By the end of the summer, I was able to move, albeit slowly, with a walker. Today, thanks to the incredible care I received at the Ottawa Hospital, I am walking again, and I'm so pleased to have some of my care team here with me today. But even more important is that I'm alive and able to tell my story to you and remind you that your life can change in an instant, just like mine did. That life-altering moment is one you'll never forget. And if it happens, I know you'll receive exceptional care, because without it, I wouldn't be here today. Thank you.